we will call the May 16th
Yes.
Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order. A roll call of the members, please.
Sure. Fudge.
Here.
Rozicki.
Here.
Swan.
Here.
Ricky.
Here.
And Smith.
Present. Almost late. Pledge of Allegiance, please. Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We did a roll call. Meeting to order. Number one, review and approval of last month's agenda. Anybody have any conflicts of interest? Any comments, any corrections? Now we hear a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You have the April 18th minutes. Any corrections, any comments? Now we hear a motion to approve them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, public hearings. A request made by Kathy Boyd, a resident at 1669 Lake Drive, to appeal the issuance of a land use permit for grading and drainage activities on the adjacent parcel. The subject property is located at 1661 Lake Drive with property number of 05-295-035-00. Ms. Boyd, are you here? Step up there, introduce yourself, and tell us what's going on, please.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Boyd. We're here because of water, specifically water trespass onto my property from the adjacent property at 1669 Lake Drive. Here's a video that I took on April 4th of this year after approval by Gordy Frazier of the drain system at 1661 Lake Drive.
Post. Anything beyond this corner post is on my property. 1669 Lake Drive. Moving surface water and past my rocks. My erosion grate is exposed in multiple places. Continuing down past the tree.
I'll just start my presentation. It's about 40 minutes. The introduction to the packet that's in front of you. To start, I'll read my introductory letter to you, which is on page 2 of your packet, written on April 16th, 2024. Mr. Smith, Mr. Rozicki, Mr. Fudge, Mr. Swan, and Ms. Fricky. As a taxpayer and resident of Garfield Township, the last year has been extremely difficult. Over the past year, the property owner at 1661 Lake Drive has made many dramatic changes to his property that are in blatant, intentional violation of township ordinances. These unchecked violations threaten my drinking water, my septic drain field, and the foundation of my home. The overflowing, newly constructed stormwater drain has already eroded my property. Since May 1st of 2023, Garfield Township Zoning Administrator Mike Green has been fully informed of the anticipated, ongoing, and completed changes to this property, but has failed to correct the ordinance violations. Today, I request your oversight of Mr. Green. Specifically, I request your help in enforcement of zoning ordinance 511.a and reversal of Mr. Green's approval of a stormwater and land use permit that allows continued use of a faulty drainage system that overflows onto my property. The first part of this report will show 4 things. Number 1, the property owner, William Wagner, at 1661 Lake Drive, was aware of the township ordinance requiring a 10-foot side yard setback for driveway concrete, Ordinance 511A. Mr. Green was aware of Mr. Wagner's intention to expand the driveway, ongoing grading and property changes, and removal of the concrete prior to pouring of new concrete. Mr. Wagner poured concrete with full knowledge of the ordinance 511.A and without a land use permit. Mr. Green had many opportunities to intervene while the property changes were in progress, chose not to intervene, and did not enforce Township Ordinance 511.A. The Township Zoning Administrator was fully aware of the property changes, yet chose to ignore direct violation of Township ordinances to appease a repeat offender. The second part of this report will establish that my property at 1669 Lake Drive, north adjacent to 1661 Lake Drive, receives increased concentrated runoff from the new expanded concrete driveway and the newly constructed stormwater drain at 3 separate locations. Number 1, concentrated overflow that exits the new drain at the lower corner post new retaining wall and runs down my property to the waters of Silver Lake. This runoff has cut a path into my hill, exposed my erosion grid in multiple places, and caused erosion to my beach. Number 2, runoff from the apron of the driveway to my sidewalk that enters my septic drain field. Number 3, runoff from the concrete within the 10-foot side yard setback and output from the perforated riser upper drain, which is within a few feet of my water well. The land changes and new expanded concrete increase the velocity and the volume of water that is now directed toward my property, which is against the law in the state of Michigan. Countless photographs and videos were provided to the township of drain construction, drain overflow, and water trespass onto my property over the last year. Mr. Green issued only a letter of violation and a single ticket to Mr. Wagner. In the end, after many months and many reminders, the township required evaluation and engineering certification of the stormwater system. Mr. Wagner then provided inaccurate data to the township engineers. The engineering calculations were based on the inaccurate data. Even with the reduced impervious surface estimations and water volume estimations, the township engineer deemed the drain system to fall short of the township ordinance requirements. Bewilderingly, the drain was then approved based on a phone call to Mr. Wagner, who provided reassurance that the drain functions perfectly. The certification was granted despite the well-documented concentrated overflow from the lower drain. Mr. Green's decision to now grant a stormwater permit to the property owner at 1661 Lake Drive is inappropriate, as many ordinance violations on the property have not been corrected. The Township Zoning Administrator was fully aware of these property changes, yet chose to ignore direct violation of township ordinances to appease a repeat offender. The premise for this request is simple. If the citizens of Garfield Township are held to the standard of obtaining permits and meeting the township ordinances for changes made to residential property, then the property owner at 1661 Lake Drive should be held to the same standard. Mr. Wagner was fully aware of the established township ordinances when he made many changes to the property that directly violate the ordinances. The Township Zoning Administrator was fully aware of the property changes, yet chose to ignore the direct violation of township ordinances to appease a repeat offender. I request that the board enforce Garfield Township Ordinance 511.a and require removal of the driveway concrete within the 10-foot side yard setback at 1661 Lake Drive. I request that the board overturn Mr. Green's decision to grant a stormwater and land use permit to the property owner at 1661 Lake Drive until the current property changes have been brought into compliance with Garfield Township ordinances and the water trespass has been addressed. Thank you for upholding the integrity of the established laws and ordinances for the residents of Garfield Township and protecting my property from the consequences of these blatant violations. Very respectfully, Kathy Boyd.
Thank you, Kathy. Board members, do you guys have any specific questions for Kathy regarding these accusations?
I have one, and it has not to do with I don't think the subject at hand, and you've twice referenced him as a repeat offender. In what sense is he a repeat offender?
Oh, I have it all listed in this presentation.
Well, just can you tell us real quick?
Yes, he's received violations from Grand Traverse County, from the state of Michigan Eagle, Grand Traverse County Soil and Erosion. He did not obtain a permit from Grand Traverse County Road Commission for the driveway replacement. He did not get a land use permit. He did not get a permit for increasing his electrical service, which included a new service for a generator and an electrical charging station. The reason I got involved in that is because he left an exposed grounding rod protruding out of the ground on my property. So I spoke with the electrical inspector for the county, and he failed an electrical inspection.
And ma'am, I don't mean to give you short shrift to your argument at all whatsoever. I'm interested in this. And Mike, I would be interested in what's your position on these issues real quick?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be glad to answer that question.
Yeah, anybody else, any questions for? Sorry, Mike.
Oh, that's okay. I can wait till.
No, please. I was going to ask the same thing. Are these all true?
I have photos and
Okay,
paper documentation.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm aware of some of the violations that she's listed. I mean, I have lots of documentation. To tell you exactly what I know and don't know, it'd be hard to do right here. What I do know, and all I can tell you is the goal in this case, as of any other case that we deal with, is to bring compliance. I've talked to you guys before. The courts will not let us just go guns a-blazing after people and start punishing people for violating ordinances. Doesn't matter how bad they've been. Doesn't matter what they've done in the past. Our goal, as stated by the court system, is to bring compliance. So, and our ordinance says an application can be made to address violations. Mr. Wagner had the right to come in here, present an application to address the violations, which we did outline in a letter back in May of last year. And this all started. So, did he do everything right? Did he follow the rules at any point, at all points in time? I can't say that he did or didn't, but we have been active in going out there. Once he came in and requested the stormwater review, we told him you can't do any grading work until this review is completed. We did receive complaint from Kathy, I think on a couple occasions. I dispatched our enforcement officers to go out there and look to check the site on the day of the complaint. And on subsequent days, they work at the park, which is right around the corner. So there was a stretch of time where they were driving over there daily, checking on the site. And I think we wrote maybe 1 or 2 tickets, but that's because he wasn't continuing to work on the site. And at the same time, he was working on an application to address the violations, which were mainly just the drainage issues on the site and the grading without a permit. Unfortunately, our ordinance if you actually read the grading permit section in Article 4, it doesn't tell you what you can grade, how much you can grade, what elevations you have to meet. There's none of that in the ordinance. It just says that you have to get a grading permit, a land use permit to grade. The only reason that this elevated to a higher level is because of the stormwater ordinance.
But, question, if, to get the grading permit, would someone say you have to do this to get the permit? It has to be a certain whatever?
Yeah, it has to meet the stormwater ordinance, which was addressed in the stormwater letters. You have 3 separate letters from Gordy Frazier in this packet. And that is a point of contention, I think, that, would be worth further discussion here. And I did address it in the report. The first letter, I think it was in January, late January, said in general it meets the stormwater ordinance. However, they made some recommendations to address overflow. I informed Mr. Wagner that he was going to have to do those things. He wasn't happy with it. He went back to Gordy Frazier, talked to our engineer. The engineer agreed that those recommendations were no longer necessary. So I had no choice but to issue the permit without those recommendations, because our engineer told us it's okay. So, however, that letter, and I can go back to that letter, actually, there was a caveat, and I did want to bring that up to you. It's from the February, let me see, it's the January 26th letter revised on February 28th, 24. Toward the end of the letter, if I can find that again, I apologize.
That's from you, Mike?
No, this was from the engineer.
Okay.
So he's telling me where things are at with the review. So, he's got changes marked and highlighted, well, not highlighted, but in purple text. Says discussion with applicant on February 9th regarding overflows. Applicant states excess water would seep through the wood retaining wall first and does not cause a concentrated overflow point. This is reasonable and addresses the above recommendation. The recommendations above are that applicants should ensure overflows are directed onto 1661 property, which is Mr. Wagner's property. And also recommend providing a notch in the retaining wall to ensure flows spread over the southerly length of the retaining wall, or provide an alternate overflow pipe to direct flow away from 1669 property. So I don't know if that makes sense to any of you here, but basically he's saying you should notch holes in the retaining wall as it goes down the hill, so it spreads the flow out. He's not saying that you can't have flow, it just has to be spread out to not be concentrated, as Ms. Boyd has shown in
prevent
the
erosion.
photos. Right. I agree with the concerns on that, and if you go to the April, and this came in after the appeal was made. This was after she filed the appeal, after I intended to issue the land use permit, which I did not issue it, I just made my intent to issue it. So I have not issued any permits yet, so I just want to say that to clarify. So fast forward to April, and there was some communication, I think, between Kathy and Mark, our engineer, between that time that led to this April review, and I apologize for stumbling around here. I just want to make sure I find it.
A lot of stuff.
Oh, it might be. Actually, it's not in her application. It's in my packet. You find that. Let's see.
I have a copy, Mike.
Okay, well, that's all right. Okay, thanks. Okay, so. Yeah, this is a long letter, addresses a lot of things, but I want to cut to the end here where he makes his further recommendations.
This is from Gordy Frazier.
Yes, yep, same engineer, Mark McGuire, he did all 3 of the review letters. Yeah, here on page 6 of 7 it starts. It's letter B, it says 1661 Lake Drive stormwater performance issued as identified by Miss Kathy Boyd. Yeah, I guess I'll read the whole thing if you don't
Go ahead.
if you like.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So it says, as noted in the above letter, section A22, some concentrated flows are presented near the northwest corner of the system. The flow concentration, while small, is not planned for and could be enlarged over the years. This can be addressed as a non-compliance issue with the recommended storm plan, as there was no approved concentrated storm overflow point reviewed. We recommend the township seek a plan from the applicant to remedy this issue to bring the outlet configuration into compliance. Fixes for consideration of the applicant could include addition of properly sized weep holes in the base of the retaining wall on the east-west length of the 1661 property. So similar to the notches, I'm assuming. Addition of supplemental storage on the lower retaining wall, and providing permanent stormwater or erosion control measures such as stone trench for dispersion and stabilization along the toe of the retaining walls. We also recommend additional means to ensure overflows are directed to the 1661 property be installed. Ultimately, the applicant needs to provide the township a remedy and means to demonstrate the functional fix. So I would take that to mean that they need to come back Mr. Wagner has to bring a set of plans to Gordy Frazier, and we need to do a further review to verify that whatever he proposes within those or otherwise meets those recommendations. So, going back to the last letter before that, he did make some reference, Mark did make some reference to possible issues with the water flow. He's not really saying it's not gonna happen. He's just saying that they've demonstrated, they've promised that it's not gonna happen. He's not saying that it won't. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but he's not closing the door completely on the issue. He's just saying applicant says it won't happen. As long as it doesn't happen, we're fine. So, but now we're finding out it's still happening. So it's not fine anymore. And that's what this.
Is there
further review-
anything in Ms. Boyd's accusations that you strongly disagree or contest? What she's saying the township's part in this was?
Well, there's a lot, but I don't want to get into that. It's,
Okay, never mind.
I mean, if you want me to get into it, I can.
Let me
Trying to
ask
stick
it-
to the facts at hand here.
Let me ask another question. Would most of this been avoided had the guy got a permit to do this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm not advocating for Mr. Wagner here. I'm not saying he did everything right.
Those are the rules.
Yes, exactly. And, and ultimately, he did come in, he applied for a permit, he went through the process.
After he'd already started.
Yeah, after all you started, yes. Correct.
Is this one of those situations where you do the deed and then you come in and ask for permission later?
I suppose, yeah. But they, I guess, if the township, through the engineer, wanted to require them to come in, and this was another point brought up in the, by the engineers, our ordinance is not perfect. I don't know if you read the stuff with Andy Smits. There's weaknesses in our stormwater ordinance that they've recognized and that Andy Smits has recognized that prevent us from doing certifications and requiring them to basically prove that they built what they're supposed to build. Because I wanted to, and I thought the ordinance said that we could require that, but unfortunately, it doesn't say that. Mark McGuire and I had a conversation. I brought it to him and I asked him, can we require him to certify through an engineer, through a sealed set of plans or a sealed letter that says, yes, I'm certifying as the engineer for Mr. Wagner that this system is built exactly the way it was drawn up and designed. Because we don't know. Otherwise, we don't know what's in the ground.
Sure.
And that's an unfortunate thing. I guess, if we really want to be heavy-handed and we had the backing of the courts, we could make them tear it up and show the engineer what's in the ground. But I don't know. I honestly don't know if we have that kind of,
Well, I guess that's what we're kind of here to figure out, if we can, how we can make this how we can make everyone happy and.
right. I mean, we can
I've
add
been on this
that.
board a long time, and I don't think we've ever had a appeal of a decision. So I'm kind of feeling my way here. You guys.
Well, I guess I'm looking for you've laid out pretty well the relief you're asking for. I guess I'd like to hear what Mr. Wagner has to say if he's here.
Do you want me to present the rest of what
Yeah,
I
go
have?
ahead, if you could.
Okay. So the first part is the lay of the land. Part 1 is the concrete within the 10-foot side yard setback. Part 2 is the stormwater permit for a faulty drain. This is a lay of the land. It's Grand Traverse County Global Information Systems parcel view, 1661 Lake Drive and north adjacent 1669 Lake Drive. 1661 is Mr. Wagner's property. My property is just north 1669 Lake Drive. Notice this is the original driveway. This picture was taken probably in 2022 because the drain field was just recently dug up. According to Mr. Wagner's letter to the township on June 7, 2023, the driveway at the narrowest point is 8 feet. This is a Zillow listing from 1661 Lake Drive. Notice the cement extends just beyond the house to a sidewalk area. This is from Google Earth, likely summer of 2022. This is a picture of the north edge of the concrete. Notice the original concrete. The green space between the properties is relatively even. The property corner marker is visible in the foreground. That property corner marker existed for over 2 decades, according to my former neighbor. This is April 10th of 2023, a year ago. The original driveway concrete is noted there. The property corner is again in the foreground. The grape trellis has surveyed entirely onto 1669 Lake Drive property by Gordy Frazier. November 27, 2022, another view of the original concrete looking east. The green space is between the houses, almost all entirely green space. Notice the location of my water well at 1669 Lake Drive. Not visible in the photo is an existing grate with gravel at the base of 1661 Lake Drive that collects the runoff from the driveway. This is the new concrete at 1661 Lake Drive, October 11, 2023. This is solid concrete from the apron to the garage. The driveway width approximately 20 feet now. New south parking area that's large enough for a car. Expanded north concrete in the side yard adjacent to my property at 1669. This is May 30th, 2023, another view of the new concrete. The width has been expanded from 8 feet to 20. The concrete within the side yard was expanded toward the house and toward the road. Note the elevation change. 1669 Lake Drive is in the foreground. 1661 is a new 11 inches or so higher. June 10th, 2023, a view of the new parking area to the south, large enough to park a car. The extended concrete is sloped into an apron intended for a parking area between our homes. Notice where the water collects and overflows. April 9th, 2023, a view of the property between the houses looking west. Note the topography of the property is even slightly sloped towards 1661 Lake Drive. The roof gutter at 1661 is visible on the left, drains to the green space of the lake side of the property, 1661 Lake Drive. July 1st, 2023, property changes looking west. Notice this lower drain is set on top of the natural slope and then filled. July 5th, 2023 again, the drain is set on the natural slope and filled with rock. This is a problem, as the path of least resistance is actually to the northwest corner where there was excavation for the post and the fence boards. May 3rd, 2023, this photo is from Gordy Frazier's survey, my survey. The original property view of Lakeside 1661 Lake Drive from my property at 1669. The erosion on the slope of 1661 is from a lawn tractor that got stuck. Notice the horizontal tracks. The roof gutter is again visible and drains to the lower green space on 1661. My property, 1669, has an established erosion grid with grass. The established retaining wall, this is just for reference, surveyed onto my property by about 8 inches. The current view of 1661 Lake Drive Lakeside property. Notice the extensive fill. The increased elevation of the retaining wall that houses the lower drain facilities or facilitates drainage from 1661 to 1669 Lake Drive. The corner post of the retaining wall that houses the lower drain is greater than 7 feet tall. This post is on the shared property line. All retaining walls, stairs, and drains were constructed without a land use permit from Garfield Township. This area is within 100 feet of Silver Lake. On to part 1, concrete within the 10-foot side yard setback. In April of 2023, Mr. Wagner approached me with his intention of replacing his driveway and extending the driveway concrete down the side of his garage between our homes. I was concerned about drainage toward my home and did not provide an easement for the concrete within the side yard setback. Mr. Wagner then proceeded to remove the entire existing driveway cement and pour new driveway concrete, extending the driveway within the 10-foot side yard setback. This was done without obtaining the necessary permits from Garfield Township and in direct intentional violation of Township Ordinance 511A. Pardon me. I'm sorry. You can just read the rest, but I do have a voice recording from Mr. Wagner in September 19th of 2022. This is prior to his purchase of the property in October of 2022. He asked about the side yard setbacks for the property. If you'd like to listen to it, I can play it.
No thanks.
Okay. April 10th, 2023. This is when Mr. Wagner informed me of his intention to replace the concrete of his driveway. There was much confusion about the location of the property line despite the corner iron that had marked the property corner for 2 decades. He set a snow stick marking 10 feet from his garage and declared the location to be the property line because the side yard setback was 10 feet, showing that he was aware of the 10-foot setback. There's the snow stick, and there's my water well. April 2023, I requested a drawing from Mr. Wagner to better understand the project. This is what he sent me, the proposal for the new driveway. I was disappointed to learn that actually Mr. Wagner was planning for a parking area between our homes. That was after talking to Mike. This is text message clarifying April 11th, 2023, letting Mr. Wagner know that there's a side yard setback. April 11th, email to Mr. Wagner, just politely saying, I trust that you're aware of these zoning permits, sidebacks, etc. Mr. Wagner presented himself as a contractor and stated that he could do the work himself. He is not a general contractor. He does not have a residential building license. He's a contractor of electrical services. April 17th, 2023, email from me to Mr. Wagner, written correspondence clarifying that I had not given any verbal permissions or otherwise for an easement. April 22nd, 2023, email from me to Mr. Wagner. Again, it was a response. These were email exchanges clarifying that any changes should be made within the zoning setback requirements. May 1st, 2023, I visited the zoning office. I spoke with Mike Green. I asked for help. During that visit, I was reassured by Mr. Green that Mr. Wagner would not be able to perform work on his driveway without permits, as the property is within 500 feet of Silver Lake. He advised me that he needed a formal complaint for the township to be involved. This is just copied from the website. May 3rd, 2023, I obtained a detailed property survey to clarify the property boundary and submitted the requested formal complaint to the township for excavation and grading without a permit. May 3rd, email from me to Mike Green. I'm concerned mostly about the excavation close to my property line and my well. Bill has already brought in large rocks and poured concrete for a parking pad toward the south neighbors. I am concerned that excavation of the slope between our homes will destabilize the ground. I am also concerned about the pouring of concrete close to my property line and the runoff toward my foundation and my well. To my surprise, Mr. Green said there was no township zoning violation and that he would not require a land use permit. The excavation of the property at this point had disrupted well over 100 square feet of earth within 200 feet of Silver Lake. There was no action from the township. May 8, 2023, email from Mr. Green to me, reassurance from Mr. Green that he would visit the work site at 1661 Lake Drive. May 11, 2023, Mr. Wagner had removed the concrete to the lower half of his driveway and brought in many dump trailers of fill dirt. He regraded the property, increasing the overall elevation at the base of the driveway by over 11 inches. I submitted a second complaint for the construction and grading. Mr. Green assured me in his email that he would visit the property. Mr. Fred Morse from Grand Traverse County Soil and Erosion came out to the site and issued a stop work order for work done without a permit. May 15, 2023, I sent photos of the removed concrete from the lower part of the driveway to the new grading and the new trench drain that was set to direct the driveway runoff toward my property. I believe the construction would need a permit from the township. Here's a photo from May 14, 2023, the new concrete in the parking area to the south and the new porch concrete. The new trench drain is directed toward my property. Notice that the new south parking area is higher in elevation than the original concrete. The new trench drain, May 14, 2023, directing the output toward my property. At this point, there is extensive excavation and fill, and the lower concrete is completely removed. May 15th, 2023, email correspondence with Mr. Green. Hi, Mike, thank you for your email. I spoke with Fred Morris, Soil and Erosion, last week, and I believe he went out to the site. I just left a voicemail for Fred, and hopefully we'll follow up with him today. Could you please clarify for me, is it against the township ordinance if Bill pours cement for a driveway within the 10-foot setback? Mike Green's response, yes, it would be violation if he pours concrete within the 10-foot setback. May 15th, email from me to Mr. Wagner. Good morning, Bill. I noticed when I was home yesterday that you're progressing with your projects and that concrete for the lower half of the driveway has been removed. It seems that the grading for the new driveway is very close to the property line. I know that you've been in touch with the zoning department about the project and that you are aware of the township ordinances. Just in case there is any confusion, as you consider the footprint for your new driveway, please keep in mind that it is against Garfield Township zoning ordinance to pour cement within the 10-foot side setback from the property line. This email was forwarded to Mr. Green at Garfield Township on May 15, 2023. May 28th, I filed a complaint with the Township Zoning Department for new concrete poured within the side yard setback. Mr. Green issued a letter of information to Mr. Wagner for violation of ordinance 511.a. June 13th, 2023, I followed up with the township and was reassured by Mr. Green that Mr. Wagner is working with the township. June 19th, 2023, I obtained Mr. Wagner's letter via Freedom of Information request. In his letter to the township, Mr. Wagner admits to awareness of the side setback ordinance, driveway concrete replacement, expansion of the concrete, and alterations to the driveway footprint. Mr. Wagner suggests that the township change their ordinances to accommodate the new driveway. Here is an excerpt from his email. I am aware of the current ordinance relative to driveways and side setbacks, as I visited you early on regarding this work. Finally, I am not sure what would need to be implemented to allow this improvement to remain. Perhaps some language added to that section in the ordinance that addresses logical exceptions to the rule. Here's the concrete from June 19th, 2023, a sea of concrete. Significant expansion of concrete within the 10-foot setback. obvious significant increase to the overall impervious surface. Grading to the entire upper property has changed the slope and overall elevation. These changes, along with the new enlarged footprint, mean that the driveway does not meet repair or grandfather status. June 19th, 2023, this is a clear view of the south parking pad. Notice the running sprinklers on the opposite side of the property create drainage at the 1669 property border. Part 1, conclusion. Mr. Wagner showed that he was fully aware of the 10-foot side yard setback. Setback requirements were clarified in writing. Mr. Wagner declared intention to replace the driveway concrete. The south parking area was poured at a higher elevation than the original concrete, indicating intention to replace. Mr. Green was made aware of the concrete removal and construction at many points. A land use permit and stormwater permit were required from the township for the driveway construction according to the township guidelines and ordinances, but not obtained. Mr. Green came out to the work site but did not get out of his car. After removal of the driveway concrete and before pouring of new concrete, I obtained written clarification from Mr. Green that new concrete within the side yard setback would be in violation of Garfield Township ordinance. The township allowed Mr. Wagner to excavate, remove the driveway concrete, fill and regrade the property, and pour new concrete without intervention. Why is this important? Mr. Wagner pushes his snow up against my grape trellis and moves all of the snow from his driveway to the small green space that is now dramatically sloped toward my property. My property sees all of this water runoff, my little 0.18 acres. Part 2, a stormwater permit for an overflowing drain. I have many videos of water extrusion from the lower drain. I showed you one of them. If you would like to see more, I can. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's a lot of water coming out of the drain.
No.
Okay. June 5th, 2023, concerned about the buried riser at the property border with no outflow pipe. I shared the photos of the drain with my engineer at Gordy Frazier. My engineer identified the system as a leaching system, meaning there's no outflow. The reservoir was intended to disperse the water from the concrete into the ground. Ms. Hodges, the township engineer, contacted Mr. Green at the township to notify Mr. Green that a stormwater permit is required for this drain. There is no action taken by the township. June 19th, 2 weeks later, the driveway concrete appears unchanged. Mr. Wagner has connected the trench drain to this leaching system at the property border with no outflow pipe. I am concerned that the system will overflow onto my property if there is a storm. Mr. Green has not addressed the stormwater system. I file a formal complaint with the township for the drain, which was constructed without a stormwater permit. See the email, June 19th, 2023. Mr. Wagner has finally issued a violation. June 18th, 2023, this is again, sprinklers are running on the opposite side of the property and the washout is on the border of 1669 Lake Drive. Here's a better picture. The water comes over and underneath this board. I have many photos of water at this location at different dates and different times. Here's a copy of the violation notice dated June 21st, 2023. June 25th, 2023, we had an intense overnight rainstorm which sent sediment into the new leaching system. The sediment caused water to back up into the trench drain and flow toward Mr. Wagner's house and foundation. The sediment washout from the storm extended 18 feet onto my property. Mr. Wagner immediately excavated the drain and set an overflow pipe. Mr. Wagner immediately reburied the system. Mr. Fred Morse visited the property. Here's a picture of the drain revision, June 28, 2023. Notice the increased elevation of the property. The upper drain, according to the July stormwater application, after construction indicates that it is still a perforated riser. This system was excavated, revised, and immediately reburied. My water well is in the planting in the foreground. July 12, 2023, the drainage pattern from the new revised upper chamber. Notice the location of the direct runoff from the concrete to the property border, as well as drainage from the perforated riser. June 30th, 2023, Mr. Morris from Grand Traverse County issued a violation to Mr. Wagner for the stormwater washout. June 28, 2023, the corner post for the lower drain retaining wall was set. This post was surveyed by Gordy Frazier, my surveyor, to be on the property line. Notice the slope of the property in relation to my established porch and railing. The distance from the ground at the base of the post to the top of my railing is 7 feet. The digging extended onto my property and exposed my erosion grid in the foreground. Mr. Wagner revised this upper drain and constructed the lower drain after he was issued a violation for not obtaining a stormwater permit on June 21st, 2023. This is another picture of the lower drain construction. Notice where the outflow pipe enters the riser. Sorry, did you get a good look at that? It's at the bottom. July 1st, 2023, the retaining wall. This is the new retaining wall that houses the lower drain, also constructed without a permit. The corner post is on the property line. These are water patterns from the new concrete. July 12th, 2023, it shows that there is direct runoff from the concrete within the 10-foot side yard setback. August 22nd, 2023, I also have videos from this date from the lower drain. Water escaping over and under the retaining wall at this location, which is just uphill from my drain, or my well, my water well. July 21st, construction continues on the lakeside of 1661 Lake Drive without a land use permit or a stormwater permit. This is a month later. Notice the washout area at the lower corner of the drain. This is important. It shows that the excavation at this point is lower. It's lower than the other three sides. Mr. Wagner filled this area and pushed dirt up against the drain with an excavator. Now the path of least resistance is at that lower corner. July 25th, 2023, Mr. Green's first visit to 1661 Lake Drive, where he gets out of his car and spoke with Mr. Wagner. Mr. Green told Mr. Wagner to stop work at the site until the necessary permits were obtained. August 29th, 2023, Mr. Wagner proceeded to move 2 large dump trailers to the lower property and set 7 more posts for a retaining wall, after Mr. Green told him to stop work. Garfield Township, Derek Morton finally issued a ticket to Mr. Wagner at 1661 Lake Drive for continued work on the property without a permit. Here's the email from Derek Morton. October 5th, 2023, Mike Green and Derek Morton from Garfield Township visited my property. The plan was to obtain certified as built status from the township engineers. I was happy with this plan because no engineer in their right mind would certify this drain that obviously dumps water onto my property. Also, peripheral discussion of Mr. Wagner's cameras that are directed at my house and floodlights. One which records me every time I go in or out of my front door and announces that it's recording. Here's the drain assessment. We'll talk about the engineers. Here's the initial July 11th, 2023 stormwater application from Mr. Wagner and Crane Engineering. The concrete surface area is estimated to be 1,213 square feet. The slab of solid concrete in front of Mr. Wagner's garage is 20 by 60, which is 1,200 square feet. The impervious surface is obviously underestimated and is a critical value in measuring the function of the drain. The retaining walls are depicted as existing. You can see where the catch basin is at the north edge of the property. and down at the lower edge of the property. A catch basin has a solid base to it. It's a solid surface sort of canister. I don't know how the water escapes if it's a catch basin. The only way that the water would escape would be to overflow. It's actually depicted here as a perforated riser, which doesn't have a bottom, set in sand. We don't actually know because we didn't actually get correct information. Oh, this is the markup. I'm not sure why it doesn't look right. I gave you a paper copy, so it's in front of you if you would like to look at it. Gordy Fraser actually marked up the original site plan. They looked, inspected parts of the system. Some of the parts were not there. They verified the impervious surface by an estimation from the global information systems. That means no tape measure. They didn't actually get accurate measurements from Mr. Green about the increase to the impervious surface. It was an estimation. Even with the estimation, it came out to be 1610 square feet, not including the right-of-way. There's no apron yet on this driveway, so if you compare apples to apples, the impervious surface increases more than 300 square feet. It includes a full parking area to the south and expansion of the parking area to the north. I'm not sure why this didn't show up either, but you have a copy of it in front of you. It's a topography view from Crane Engineering showing the new grading to the property. The original elevations of the property border are not depicted. The retaining walls are depicted as existing rather than new construction. The corner post of the lower drain is actually on the property line, not 8 inches set in from the property line. So these are the issues that I had with the engineering report. The recalculation of impervious surface showed that the driveway concrete estimation was adjusted to 1610 square feet, not including the right-of-way. Estimation was made from the drawing, not actually verified. The concrete under the eaves was not included. The new concrete within the side yard for the generator and electrical was not included. The increase in the impervious surface is estimated to be a nominal 120 square feet, which is inaccurate. Driveway apron concrete has not been poured. Again, apples to apples. The roof impervious surface was not verified and is underestimated. The roof square footage was not included in the Gordy Fraser calculations. Dimensions for the home are depicted on the topography assessment. Actual calculation of roof impervious surface directed toward this drain system is conservatively measured at 700 square feet. The roof gutters previously were directed to the green space on 1661 property. The roof gutters are now tied into the system and should be included in the drain requirements for stormwater management. The reason that this is important additionally is that Mr. Wagner's next step is to replace his roof with a steep gabled roof. Stormwater stone drain number 2 was not even installed. The reported dimensions of the stone bed were overestimated. The reported cubic foot volume of the stone was overestimated. The reported dimensions of already constructed stone drain were inaccurately or incorrectly reported. The cylinder of the catch basin was not subtracted from this calculation. The upper and lower catch basins were not inspected, were reported to be solid structures, and are actually probably risers. We don't know. They are depicted as risers on Mr. Wagner's stormwater application, July 11th, 2023, that he submitted after construction was completed. This is an email from Gordy Fraser dated January 26, 2024. Gordy Fraser acknowledged that the full ordinance is not met at the ordinance maximum infiltration rate of 1 inch per hour for underground storage facilities. We note that a higher infiltration rate can be expected in the area, but they did not take soil samples. They reduced the criteria to manage the increase in impervious surface and the ability to provide treatment volume for the entire catchment is attained within the as-built system with these reduced criteria. Any potential overflows will spill over the timber retaining wall. This is if the catch basin is actually a catch basin, which it likely isn't. They encourage the applicant to ensure overflows are directed onto his own property, recommending a notch in the retaining wall to ensure flows are spread over the southerly length of the retaining wall, or provide an alternative pipe to direct the flow away from my property. None of these changes were made. February 28th, the stormwater report as amended by Gordy Frazier. The discussion with the applicant on 2.9 regarding the overflows, the applicant states excess water would seep through the retaining wall first and does not cause a concentrated overflow point. The township had the videos that I sent, which indicated a concentrated, not necessarily overflow, but outflow point from the base of the drain. This is reasonable and addresses the above recommendation. Approval of this drain based on verbal reassurance from the applicant is a violation of engineering ethics. I followed up with Mike Green on March 25th. I had no idea that this had happened. I asked if Mr. Wagner had any permit issued as he set new posts on the lower property. Mr. Green replied, no new permits have been issued yet. However, the stormwater plans for grading and drainage projects have been given the green light by Mark McGuire at Gordy Frazier. Keep in mind, it was my understanding that this system would be certified as built. I took that to mean that the system had achieved certification as built status, and I wrote a directive email to Mr. McGuire. The bottom line, it seems that despite the drain not meeting ordinance criteria and despite the many photos and videos provided to the township of concentrated flow from the base of the lower drain, the drain was certified based on a discussion with Mr. Wagner where he stated the drain is working. The faulty system continues to discharge water from the base of the lower drain, which runs directly onto my property. Stormwater flows all the way down the hill to the waters of Silver Lake. Here's a photo, September 7th, sediment push into Silver Lake from the September 2023 storm. This washout occurred after the stormwater system was completed. Here's a close-up of the sediment push into Silver Lake. Here's a photo from March 5th, 2024. Continued washout at the same location after the first spring storm of this year. It's been an entire year. Here's the water path from the corner of the lower drain where the water exits at the base of the drain. Here's a farther out view of the water path from the corner of the lower drain where the water exits at the base of the drain. April 26, 2024, Gordy Frazier issued a letter to Mike Green at Garfield Township acknowledging the inspection and calculation deficits and performance issues of the drain. Gordy Frazier clarified that it was not their role to issue certification as built status for the drain. This is the letter that's in front of you. In conclusion, the entire driveway, the first leaching system, the revised drain system, and all retaining walls were constructed without engineering oversight or proper permits. The drain system does not function properly, even with reduced criteria calculations. The water exits the drain at the base of the system, not through or over the retaining wall. The exit point indicates faulty engineering. The drain was inadequately inspected and approval was based on reassurance from the applicant that the drain works. The engineers at Gordy Frazier have issued a letter to the township redacting approval of the system. The photos and videos are definitive evidence that the drain system is not functioning properly. In conclusion, Mr. Green's decision to issue a permit to the property owner at 1661 Lake Drive is unwarranted and in violation of township ordinances. I ask that you, the board, uphold the integrity of the law in the state of Michigan and the established Garfield Township ordinances. I ask that you require reversal of Mr. Green's decision and rescind the land use and stormwater permits. until the drain system is brought into compliance with the township ordinances and the water trespass has been addressed. Here is a list of the violations issued to Mr. Wagner from the state of Michigan, Grand Traverse County, and Garfield Township for work done without permit. There are 7. The reference documents and emails are in possession of Garfield Township. If you would like any copies of emails, additional photos, or additional videos, please feel free to contact me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Board members, questions for Ms. Boyd before she sits down?
I'd like to know where those 7 items are listed in your packet, if you could find those for me.
You said 52? Page 52.
In this
52.
In this binder?
In the binder.
Any questions down there? Nope. Do you want me to open this to the public? Is that the next step in this, or?
It's up to you. If you have questions for me, you can ask me, but otherwise you can let the public speak. It might be better to let the public.
I think
Respond
that's
to.
appropriate, yep. Is there anyone in the public who wants to make comment on this project? Sir, step up here, introduce yourself.
Can you help me inject this? Can I just take it out? Okay. Oh, right there, SanDisk. Thank you.
Sir?
Wow. When I first got word of this thing,
I'm sorry,
I'm Bill Wagner, I'm the subject of this thing, even though this appeals to the board, to the zoning department, I'm the subject of it, and I'm the recipient of the results of your decision here.
thank you.
So when I got this thing, and I got a copy of it printed out at home, started to read through it, and I'm thinking, I'm reduced to a public comment, which is only for 3 minutes.
You can talk as long as you want.
Okay, but technically, public comment's 3 minutes, what I was told, or what I thought at least. So I've spent, since getting this, trying to do something where I could get the points across that I needed to make to rebut this thing. Because it's almost sad to me, the inaccuracies in this thing. So I got this thing down to about a 5-minute response that I'd like to read through first.
Sure. Have at it.
And then I hope you can start questioning the dickens out of me.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Bill Wagner, and I'm the neighbor to the south of Miss Boyd. And though this appeal is addressed to Garfield Township, particularly Mike, I'm the subject of it. So as we've just heard, I've been accused of a lot of things. Miss Boyd accuses me right off the bat of making blatant and intentional violations of township ordinance, just to start with. And then she goes on with all kinds of other claims. So I'd like to try to set the record straight here. So initially, I felt I needed to rebut every item in this entire package. But as I thought about it more, it came to realization that this is really about one issue, and that's a land use permit. I mean, we're up to the point where this is an appeal for the land use permit. So I think Kathy referred to it as a stormwater permit. I don't know if those are two different things. I'm not familiar with what a stormwater permit is. I think she means land use permit in her presentation. So anyway, I wanted to try to be brief and go through kind of in order the sequence of how this all came down to get us to this point today. So the spring of 2023, I had purchased this property in '22, in the fall, the winter. Spent the winter dealing with the winter. And then in the spring of '23, I initially had a erosion problem on my shore. The lake was very high and rapidly eroding the shoreline. So I began by calling Eagle to discuss the issue. In brief, they said that I had the right to make repairs down by the water just to arrest the erosion, but I may need a permit from them if the work was in the water. In the water meaning beyond the legal established elevation of 600 and some odd feet. So I proceeded to do that. Sometime later, Ms. Boyd contacted, quite a while later, after a lot of these other allegations were made, she contacted Eagle apparently, claiming that I was doing illegal work in the water. This was false, as I proved it when I solicited a survey of that line from Mitchell Associates. During the same period, I had begun improvements in and around the front of the house. I was removing outdated shrubbery, reshaping the area, adding planters, flowers, shrubs, trees, boulders, sod, and a concrete patio that Ms. Boyd refers to as a parking lot. It's a patio in front of the house. During the same, so, you know, she went on to claim I was doing illegal stuff there too. So by this time, I had talked with zoning, Mike and Jamie and whatnot, about what I could do to remedy a severe drop-off along the north side of the house, which is in the side setback that's been talked about. The elevation between the road and the water level drops about 21 feet, and it pitched in some areas as much as 45 degrees, in particularly the area that she showed you where she talked about ruts that cause erosion into her backyard and whatnot. Ruts, by the way, made by probably a commercial lawnmower that the previous owner had hired to try to get down there and cut his lawn. It was almost impossible to even walk down that corner. So initially, I was trying to come up with what to do, because I needed a spot to get around, and I wanted to park a snowblower, which I found I can't do in the setback later. But anyway, I started with the idea of having like a deck walkway around there. Zoning informed me I can't do that, but that I could do a retaining wall and bring the elevation up and basically make a new ground level and sod it and be done with it. So I was informed that I need a soil and erosion permit to do that work. I'm losing my place here. Okay, so anyway, I went with the retaining wall idea, drew up some drawings of it, took it over to soil and erosion, and made application for the permit. So while I'm waiting for this soil and erosion permit, I began to make repairs on this horrible driveway that you've seen pictures of. It had been patched in several times. She mentioned something about an 8-foot wide. That's exactly right, one of the issues I had. When I backed out of this driveway a couple times during that previous winter, because when you're backing out and the hills come down like that, you look out the back window and you see clouds. So you can't even see where you're going. So I dropped off into that corner up there, which I wanted to fix. And the fix to me, this was a fix, this is a repair of a driveway, was to just start, initially, I was just going to repair broken concrete and try to do some corrections that made sense. But as we proceeded, it just became clear that just was not enough. So I started this repair on the driveway while I'm waiting for the soil and erosion permit to be processed and put in my hand. So once we realized that we're going to have to do more, my concrete contractor said, you know, why don't we put a trench drain down here in front of the garage? It would capture this water coming down here, and we'll divert it on off towards the lake in some method, undetermined method at that time. So I said, well, that's cool, let's do that. And Bill was his name. He went ahead, and I tore out the couple sections there. I had already built the patio. Let's back up a little bit. I'd already built the patio in front of the house. That concrete was already poured. So the next section was the section right in front of the garage where the trench drain would go. So I tore that section out, and we placed the drain level about 4 feet from the garage, and then started to go. I had concrete scheduled the next morning, and all of a sudden, I get contacted, actually from the Ring doorbell on the front of the house, that somebody's there slapping a stop work order on the house. So I think my son actually got the notification on Ring, and he called me. He said, some guy's there, and I might have been able to talk to him even over the Ring. I don't know. Anyway, I went there immediately and talked with Fred from Soil and Erosion, and he explained to me that the lake, within 500 feet of the lake and this and that, you got to have a soil and erosion permit to do this stuff you're doing on the driveway. Like I said, I'm doing repairs in my mind first. He tells me, no, you got to have a soil and erosion permit. So I said, well, Fred, I've got a soil and erosion permit already applied for these retaining walls that I'm getting ready to build on this back side of the house. So he says, well, you can just add this driveway work to that permit, but you still can't do any work until you have that permit in hand. So later that afternoon, he calls me up and says, I'm processing a permit right now. You can come over tomorrow or this afternoon or whatever and pay for it, and we'll issue it. So I immediately drove over there, paid for the permit. They handed it to me. I ran over to Home Depot, got a job box, nailed it on the post, and had the permit. So all these accusations about me not having any permits and starting all this work before anything being permitted are not accurate. I mean, I'm doing landscape work. I'm doing legal work to arrest erosion down at the lake. And then I proceed to, in my mind, start fixing this busted up driveway. As soon as Fred told me I had to have a permit, and he said I could add it to it, the same day that he came out with that stop work order, I had that permit posted that same evening. So the day after that, I'm good to go. Driveway, retaining walls, soil and erosion permit. That's the jurisdiction, that's the authority that I had, that's given me, say I can do all this work, right? Okay. So, where am I here? Okay, so I got a permit for thus far, the only two things requiring permitting. So I'm ready to tackle the driveway, and I started doing that. Now, at some point, heretofore, there had been no mention of a land use permit from anybody. In fact, you saw the one, I think it was on May 3rd, where in an email, Boyd to Green, that says, where Kathy states, or Ms. Boyd states that, to her surprise, Mr. Green said, there was no township zoning violation, and Mike would not issue, or would not require a land use permit. So again, no land use permit required until suddenly it was. My initial response to this was, we already know what the land use is. It's a driveway repair to an existing driveway. So I might understand it if there had been no driveway to begin with, why you would need a land use. To me, in my mind, it's like, you want to know what I'm using the land for. You want to know what I'm going to do. Well, I'm only fixing the driveway in my head. But anyway, that's where that was. So there was a driveway there. So anyway, I've continued to be puzzled by this. So I questioned the zoning. I think I went and met with Mike and said, what triggered this sudden need for a land use permit? Where did this come from? What high power jumped in or something and said, no. That soil and erosion permit that's been your thing all this time is no longer any good. Now this land use permit is going to step in and take over everything. So he says basically it had something to do with I think this is what the response was, something about the driveway elevation changes and the stuff I ended up doing in the driveway. And the things that I was doing to the driveway was the situation with the driveway as it was pitched at least 11 inches towards Miss Boyd's property. Literally, all the water from the top of the hill on my property went to her property prior to all this work happening. Literally all of it. And there's a kind of a depression between the two properties along the property line that where it followed down to the lake. So when I was done with this driveway, except for the last little piece of apron because the road's such a mess, I leveled that out and I captured literally everything that goes down my property, goes straight to that drain, that trench drain, and then all these pictures she's showing you are during construction. And the first thing I did is, okay, I got a pipe coming off this trench drain. What am I going to do with it? So I put a culvert there to use as a clean out. So when anything got in there, got trapped, I could pull the lid, shovel it out, and get rid of it. So this is all in flux. It's very dynamic. It's changing constantly because as I see what needs to be done, I come up with ideas to do it, and I do it. So all this stuff, let's move all the way up to June 25th, when I got the first violation for anything on this, and that was a violation, rightfully so, given to me from Fred at Soil and Erosion, because we had what you might call a 100-year storm where Mother Nature dumped 3 inches of rain on us in about 30 minutes. This job was under construction. It was completely exposed. There was nothing but topsoil on the hill, and we get 3 inches of rain in 30 minutes, and I got a 21-foot drop at 45 degrees from the road. What do you think is going to happen? It filled my trench drain with topsoil from my hill, flooded my garage, got out of my garage, and proceeded down the side of the house in the setback area to where I had a couple silt fences at the end of my work area at the time, defeated them, got over the top of that, and there's 2 more tiers down there that are existing. So it got over, I didn't even have any retaining wall built yet. This is just silt fences. It got over that, and it got down to an old retaining wall. It escaped around the edge of it, and it spilled a little bit of sand in her yard down by the lake. So she calls Soil and Erosion. Mike comes out, issues me a citation. Okay, it happened. What am I going to do? I'll just clean it up. So I asked Mike about it. I said, I hadn't talked to Kathy or Mrs. Boyd in quite a while at that point because she was just misunderstanding everything I was trying to tell her. Mike says something, I'll try to email her. So that one letter you saw where I had circled, work it out with your neighbor, that sand down there, I tried to do that, and I just got her, she just told anybody she didn't want me on her property. So that was never cleaned up. It's still not cleaned up today, to the best of my knowledge. And I'm not allowed on her property anymore. She's accusing me of trespassing and all kinds of stuff. She's called the cops on me twice. She threatens to have me arrested. Her lawyers threaten me with civil suits and arrest and injunctions, and they make suggestions that I move my fence 2 feet off the property line so I can walk down the side. They have an opinion that in one of the letters that I won't listen to anybody, even my lawyer. Well, my lawyer's here. You can ask him if I listen to him or not, and anybody else. So all this stuff, it's just absurd. So anyway, maybe we'll move into the concrete on the side there. Because I was being reminded and I was aware of the setback thing, in my mind, this is all a grandfathered in driveway repair. I'm making, with extreme caution, making sure I don't go beyond the footprint along the property line that already existed. I was very precise. I don't think there's an inch difference where that concrete is. Mike even came out, the day that she talks about that Mike came out to the site and finally got out of his car, because she accused him of not getting out of the car earlier, was the day, and I was there, that he wanted to measure over to her sidewalk so we could determine that that line was in fact where I said it was, right over the existing footprint. Now, I did take a liberty there, and I added about 3 feet of concrete towards the water just because it made more sense to me. And I thought, well, I can just kind of trade that off because I eliminated footage of that old footprint on the other side of that same area. So I thought, well, surely we can trade that, but it's not. So anyway, when I was told that I would get, he had intended to issue the land use permit, he said, I can't issue it until you remove that 3-foot section of concrete, which I agreed to do. And I was gonna do until this appeal came up, and I was told, don't do anything. So, some of the things he just said just blow my mind. Let's do electrical. I'm an electrical contractor. I've been in business here in Traverse City since 1981. I've been building stuff since I was 5 years old. That's 70 years ago. I started building stuff with my grandparents. Everybody in my family's in the construction industry. I don't have a residential building license, but I've built many houses under homeowner permits. I don't have you don't need a building license to construct a commercial building. I built my own building out there across from the ballpark. This is 12,000 square feet, still building. So, it's ludicrous to even make these comments about, like I don't know what I'm doing. So anyway, I believe that I've done everything required. I started with a permit in soil and erosion, 2 projects, retaining wall, driveway. I looked at them 2 different ways. From what I can tell, the land use issue came about because I flattened my driveway and I captured all that runoff and I needed somewhere to get rid of it. So that whole process just kind of developed more or less day by day as my son and I did all this work. So I said, well, put this catch basin there, a clean out corner there. Then we get that giant storm. I'm accused of rushing over there to clean up a mess like I did something wrong. No, I had a mess. I had all the topsoil off the top of my yard was in my garage. So of course I'm going to go fix it. And there's at this point no drain pipe going down to any other culvert down at the end. I hadn't even done that yet. If you look at that picture, you just see silt fences. You don't see all that other stuff. So as we got down there and I started getting the retaining walls built, I started bringing in stone. And I probably brought in, I bet you that picture you see has probably got 5 yards of stone that I brought from my own property down there. Then I went and purchased another 5 yards of drain stone, which I put down there, but you don't see it in a picture anywhere. It goes almost all the way to the top, and there's topsoil. And I placed, I think it was a 24-inch culvert there, ran a 4-inch pipe into it, perforated it with like 1.5-inch holes all throughout, so that any water coming down the driveway, of which all of the water that hits my property, except right at the road, does come down the driveway, hits that trench drain, over to the clean out, down the 4-inch pipe, into this culvert, leaches into all that stone and sand, and then there's like 2x12s across there, and then if it saturates all of that underground stuff down there, then it will leach out of the boards and down to an existing tier that's been slightly modified because I've added more dirt to it, but it's grass covered, it's weed covered right now. And then from there, it will hit another old existing retaining wall that's about that high above grade. If it defeats that, it'll go over to the final tier, which is grass and sand, and then Silver Lake. So to talk about Gordy Frazier, when I called Mark about, I said, what are you asking for here? What, cut a hole, do this? He didn't even know what he was talking about. He really couldn't explain it. So I said, so what is it that you're worried about? He said, well, we want you maybe to put an overflow in that thing. So in other words, now I'm going to take this culvert, and I said, you mean you want me to, I said, I'll drill a 4-inch hole in there if you want for an overflow like you see in all these things. But I said, what's that going to accomplish? You're just going to dump the water faster and sooner than the system already provides for. I said, if the system is overwhelmed by another 3-inch rainstorm, it's just gonna overflow and it's gonna fall over the top and it's gonna go out and leach out and spread out and do all this other stuff and hit the existing things that are already in place down there. Because the retaining wall I'm building is mainly to get me down there and give me some more level grade up there, okay? So, Jesus, when I first got this thing, that's my short version of this thing. When I first got this thing, the red that you see throughout this thing, all my comments.
The microphone.
Yeah.
Oh, am I hitting the mic?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Anyway, it's just so inaccurate. Let's talk about the electrical violation that
Mr.
you're
Wagner, we've gone back and forth on this probably. The electrical thing is not part of this land use permit. Anything else you want to tell us?
No, that's what I'm saying. I think this is all about the land use permit. But what I'm trying to point out is that all these accusations are just inaccurate, right down to the point of being just flat untruthful.
Okay.
You know, so.
Board members, you have any questions for Mr. Wagner? Sure.
What do you think you have to do, as it lays right now, to be in conformance with all the requirements of the township?
Nothing. The first video she shows where she's got a piece of foil on that corner post, which is on my property. If you notice a pink string on that one picture, where she says that post is right on the property line, the pink string is the property line, and it's about 8 inches off that string. She's got another video that she didn't look at, that I think is the one where she's videoing about an inch of snow melting up on Lake Drive. And it follows the sod over to her property and it heads towards the lake. Well, her deck comes up to about a foot from my new retaining wall and fence. That's where the ground pitches at 45 degrees. My contention is that that water coming from the road is actually coming down that old section down, and it's following right there. I'm not saying it can't be coming down the rock and get down in that corner somewhere, but I'm not allowed to go on her property and fix it. I'm not allowed to step a foot on her property. I have an email that says if I do, she'll have me arrested. So I can't, my hands are tied on this. But this is about the land use permit that came up mysteriously after, just later on. After,
I guess that's just the way it is. It was something that the township requires, and that's what we're dealing with here. All that other stuff before or after that,
Right.
the land use permit has to be there.
Right, it does
Period.
now, yeah.
Period.
And
Any other questions?
I have a question. In regards to the way you've got your catch basins, okay? So you come off of your French drain in front of your garage doors, goes into your clean-out catch basin. And then you have pipe that goes from that to the next riser?
underground, yep.
Underground, okay. Now, that's where you're talking about how it's been either perforated or whatever to allow the leaching to happen.
Right.
Can you go ahead and take a pipe from that catch basin, getting it further out onto your property with a French drain or gravelers to divert that water deeper onto your property than on the property line?
It's not on the property line, it's on the property line is here. This stuff leaches out this way. If you're asking me, can I put a pipe down below the top of it? Yeah, but then you're gonna have a pipe that's just gonna, once that thing fills up, it's gonna pour out of that pipe. And you talk about concentrating the flow. The way I have it-
There are approved techniques and methods that you can get from the different authorities to do it the way they want it done. Not how you think it should be done, not how some we suggest. I'm not trying to be a jerk about this, but there are people that can tell you exactly what needs to be done.
And
In
Gordon
my opinion,
Fraser-
that's what you need to do.
Okay,
Just-
Gordon Fraser.
My opinion is issue this appeal. Stop whatever you're doing. You go to all these agencies that issue permits, and you have them tell you exactly what they want you to do. and you do it that way, and then you're clean.
Okay, so what is the exact issue that we're talking about? What is it that you want?
All the things that you violated. The first thing I do is make sure you get the proper permits.
Yeah, we can't-
That's what started this thing.
We can't give you a land use permit until you.
I know, that came up after.
I just explained to you, I'm sorry, that happened that way, but that's the way it is. You have to have that.
I think the problem here is that you have, the system sounds like it was planned out well and you put a lot of thought into it and everything, but the problem is it was never officially declared as, yeah, that's what needs to be
I
done.
understand that. It's not,
And so when it
it's not
didn't,
like, some stamped engineer said, yeah, this is gonna work.
and the advantage is if you got the stamp engineer that says, this is what you need to do to meet the requirements, and then it fails.
Yep.
Then it's not your fault, it's their fault, and, you know.
Go back on them.
It goes back on them, not on you.
Okay,
right?
well, so Gordy Fraser basically said that, but they won't, that's their
It sounds like
hire.
they backpedaled a little bit on it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so,
And find somebody
so if
who
I go
will.
to my, like, Bill Crane, for example, who did the preliminary work for me on this thing, if I just go back to him and he would be the guy that would do that in this case because he's familiar with it. Is that what you're saying?
The township can tell you who to get the necessary information from, I would assume.
Right, I mean, so Mike,
Yeah, you
I
can,
mean, somebody like Bill Crane, is that
Yeah.
acceptable?
well, yeah, if you're working with them already,
Yeah,
yeah, just go to them and say, hey, here's the last letter from Gordy Frazier, here's what the ZBA said, draw plans and make it work, I think that's all you need. You're basically further amending the stormwater plans that you've already submitted to the township and had reviewed, so,
yeah.
yeah.
And work with the township and say, this is what they've told me to do. Is this okay with you guys? Work together on it.
Yeah,
Get it
I
the way
thought
it's
that's what
supposed to
I've
be.
been doing.
Not the way you think it should be.
No, I mean,
You probably have some good ideas. I'm not arguing that, but there's an approved way, and these guys know what it is.
All right, so you want an engineer stamp drawing that says this is okay. This meets the requirements that Gordy Fraser said it met. I just need my own guy to do basically that same thing.
And then get them to approve it.
Get the permit.
Right, you're gonna have them re-engineer this to address the concerns that are brought up like, with the water overflow.
And it might only be minor changes.
You are gonna have to add to the system if that's what these
And
guys say.
I would just add, you might want to work with your neighbor a little bit on this.
If what?
You might want to work with your neighbor.
It's not possible. She's uncooperative, I can't. I've tried to,
That's,
Well, it's my
that's not our business.
I know. So let me just ask this, is it, the very beginning of that presentation was about that little bit of water that she claims is coming down through.
You need to remedy all the violations you've had and get all the permits you need and get it approved. That's the bottom
Okay, all
line.
right, Mike, I'll just have to talk to you, because I'm not quite sure what I need. I thought we had taken care of everything that you wanted me to take care of. I mean, you were
If
gonna
this,
issue
if
the land
this
use.
accusation of you being in the setback is accurate, you gotta remove some concrete. Or get a variance, and that's not easy.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be argumentative or anything, but if a tree fell on the overhang that's in the setback, and my roof started leaking, am I not allowed to repair that
Certainly you are.
overhang? Well, to me, it's the same, what's the
Well,
difference?
that's.
I'm repairing a driveway
I'm
that's
not-
already there.
I'm not arguing with you. That's just your opinion, and unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily always win the argument.
I think that's just it's a definition on whether it was a repair or not, because you re-leveled it, which is for the better, but it still makes it a different driveway. And I think the overall square footage might be larger too on the new driveway.
Okay, I don't have an issue with
So
that.
it's just a matter of, if you can get the permits, then you kind of pass the buck as far as any, I'm sure even if it was permitted and done correctly, you probably still would have had some overflow and some runoff with the 100-year storm that we had.
Well, that, yeah.
But then it wouldn't be your fault.
Right.
I mean, the problem now is that you had a design system that you put in that made sense and seemed to look like it was going to work great, but we already have a failure of it already. So it's, the failure's kind of, it's on you now instead of being on the engineers, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wagner. Any more questions?
I do have some, Mike, you said there's no stormwater permit that was actually issued. There was just an intent to issue so far?
That's what I heard too.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
and then, but the land use permit was issued, and that's what we're reviewing now?
Well, no, but technically, there's no stormwater permit.
Oh, okay,
The stormwater, really, there's just a stormwater review.
gotcha.
When typically, we don't do single-family residential projects that involve stormwater. In fact, this is the very first time we've ever required it. We didn't, I didn't know, no one knew here that we required it. All kinds of projects have gone on around Silver Lake and other rivers and streams throughout the township that are single and two-family. And if you just read the zoning ordinance, it doesn't say anything about stormwater review or any kind of engineered plans being required. So it's nothing coming from the zoning ordinance, it's coming from the stormwater ordinance, which is neither here nor there. Now we know that it's required for any lot within 500 feet of a lake or stream, or any excavation over an acre, so, or grade change over an acre, so. Anyways, once we figure that out, they did the stormwater review. We get a letter recommending the approval of the stormwater system. That approval is intended to be done through the land use permit. So the only permit would be the land use permit.
Has that been issued?
No, it has not been. I contacted Ms. Boyd out of courtesy and told her that I intended to issue the permit based on the information I had available at the time. So no permit has been issued as of yet.
So Mike, are you backing away from that now then?
No, I'm not backing away from it.
You want to take the mic?
The intention to,
Yeah, come on up to the mic
Sir,
just so we can record it, yeah.
take the mic.
the intention to issue the land use permit has already been made. Mike, you contacted me and said that, I have done everything I needed to do to get to the point where you would issue the land use permit, except for remove that 3-foot piece of concrete. So, you've even agreed that only that 3-foot piece of concrete is not out of compliance with it, with the zoning ordinance of today, right?
Right, but also based on the stormwater review.
Right.
Which changed. And it didn't change. What happened is our engineer discovered an issue of noncompliance. It's not that they didn't know could be an issue, is that they didn't know it was an issue until Ms. Boyd came back and further reported it. So I don't think we
Because of this,
changed the
because
terms of the
this
permit.
initial drainage off the corner, is that what's triggering this?
I think whatever drainage she's showing in the videos, that's what triggered the re-review of this. So, that's all I can tell you. I can't give you
I know, but I'm gonna get it
specifics.
resolved, so
Trying
I'm
to
just
give me
trying
a-
to
ask me
understand.
specific
Get with the
questions.
drain people and get it resolved. Have them tell you what you need to do. Because Mike's not an expert on drainage.
No, but.
No, and I can revoke a permit if something comes out
I
that
know.
I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, I know.
In case you're thinking that I'm just changing my mind.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm not just
Is
changing
that
my mind.
corner- Is that the issue that's causing this problem right now?
It's the water draining onto her property.
So
That's
that
the
little
issue.
foil part.
But it's also the concrete. The concrete still needs to be removed where it was marked on the plans, that
Right, and that's
excess
that
concrete.
30 square feet roughly.
Or it could be more if they disagree with my determination on the 10-foot or on the nonconformity. So that
Okay.
part,
Can we at
They're gonna have
least
to
get
decide.
that part resolved right
you're
now?
gonna, I think we need to
No, we
let them make
can't
their
res-
decision.
We can't resolve
Concrete in the
that.
setback?
You need to let them make their decision.
Who?
These guys, the ZBA.
So we have.
Here's one more time, Mr. Wagner. One more time. Go through the list of the accusations, see if Mike says, yes, that's a violation, no, that needs to be fixed, yes, it does. One by one, get the permits, get the proper drawings, get it approved, and away you go. That's simple.
All right, Mike, I need to sit down with you and
Next week, sometime, whenever I have a written decision from the ZBA, there'll be minutes drafted. I'll work on a list of items that were made in this meeting, and I will go over that with you.
Okay.
So until that happens, I can't comment any further on.
Board members, any more questions?
So we have three choices. We either leave it as is, allow the permit to stand.
Somebody needs to make a motion to reverse or affirm.
Or affirm with conditions.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. Is there a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
Did you want to make sure there's no more
Oh,
public
more
comment?
public
I
comment.
can.
Yeah.
Does anyone else in the public have a comment or question on this?
Just a question.
Sure.
Isn't one of the required permits a land use permit to be able to continue work on a project?
I have no idea.
Yes.
If everything's tore up.
That's what we said. Go ahead and get all the proper permits, whatever they may be,
He's got to get to the microphone, guys.
whatever they may be.
Everything's tore up. 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 That's one of the required permits. that you're
Then,
not issuing.
then you gotta have it.
Mr. Chairman, he's got to get to the microphone. We can't record him.
That was just a,
It's just a question.
Okay.
I mean, to get a permit, you're not gonna allow.
that's my understanding. Is that right, Mike? No permit, no work?
Right, we issue the permit, then you do the work. That's the short answer.
Can you clean the site up at all? Because it's a mess.
You,
No, I just,
No.
Mike, we need to,
you can't
as soon as
grade,
possible, we need to just pinpoint what you're saying here.
Exactly.
these guys
And
are
I'll
gonna
deal
make a
with it. And if
decision.
I have to make a repair on the corner, which I suspect is gonna be the main issue here, if in fact the water is doing what she's claiming, well, I think it's coming down from the road, but she's saying it's coming out of there.
Be careful, because in your mind, these are repairs, and in the ordinances, they're not repairs, they're major work, so be warned.
Well,
Any more questions? Anybody in the public, anything else? We'll close it. Ma'am, did you raise your hand? No. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll close it for the public, back to the board. Any more questions? Any comments? We'd hear a motion.
How did you have that worded?
Oh, yes. me go
Look
to
on
that.
page 2 of 6, on the back thing that says decision, there's some wording, verbiage there that would help you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
Are you guys addressing the 10-foot
we're
driveway?
addressing,
'Cause-
the petition is just for the reversal of
Right,
the appeal, excuse me.
okay, I just want to make sure you were aware the appeal is addressing both, and I'm sure you're aware of that. so-
That's my understanding.
Okay,
Addresses everything.
yes, everything.
No permit, no work.
Right.
Got it.
Did you find it, Len?
Yeah, I did. Just trying to figure out how to word it. You made it pretty simple when we were talking about it.
I think we have, according to the directions, we have three choices. We either let it stand, we revoke it, or let it stand with conditions.
Okay.
And that's kind of the same as all of our petitions that we ever get.
Once, if that motion to revoke it flies, once he complies with all your permits and instructions, then he can go to work.
Move
Right.
forward.
Right. Now, the motion is to reverse the decision, so you're reversing my decision to issue the land use
Right.
permit based on the stormwater and on the nonconformity, so
Yep.
Correct.
you can
Both.
agree with the nonconformity, the stormwater, or both, or neither one of them, so,
There's a lot of back and forth, and let's just get them all squared away.
okay.
I don't have the language in front of me, otherwise I'd make the motion. You're asking me to read this? So what have we agreed to as far as the motion we're going to make?
My understanding is that we're looking at reversing
That's mine also.
the decision, and him going after his permits and pretty much starting over again with that. But in
Okay.
the correct,
Zoning Board of Appeals shall give public notice. Let's see, we've been through that. Any person can speak, we've been through that. The Zoning Board of Appeals hereby reverses the...
We make a motion.
I'm sorry, a motion to reverse the preliminary decision to issue the, was it land use permit? That would be my motion.
Okay. Motion is made. There's support.
support.
Roll call vote for the motion.
Reverse.
Bricky.
Reverse.
Swan,
Reverse.
Fudge,
Reverse.
and Smith.
Reverse. Motion carries. Thank you.
So can I, just so I can clarify for the record, you're reversing you're reversing in the drainage, but
We're
also the
reversing
nonconformity?
both.
Both, okay. Just want to make sure I'm
Both
clear on that.
items.
We're reversing the issuance of the permit, and that
So-
includes everything,
So he has to remove the 10 feet, go back to 10 feet on the driveway.
unless he wants to apply for a
Unless he wants to apply
variance, I
for a
guess.
variance.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it doesn't preclude him from doing anything in the future with permitting. It
Okay.
doesn't stop him from getting another permit.
Well, he can't get a permit he's got to remove the,
You're
gotta
saying he's
remove the
got to get a
non-compliant.
variance in order to get that permit.
Yeah, unless
That's
he gets a
what you're saying.
variance.
right,
Yeah.
yep,
So we're not ordering anything, we're just
No,
saying that the
no,
permit's
no,
being revoked.
no.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
I just want, thank you.
Item 4, any other unfinished business?
Nope,
Item 5, any other business? Anything next month?
I hope not. No, I have nothing.
Nothing for next month? Any public comment? Okay, we hear a motion to adjourn.
So,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned.
All right.